I now call the East Lyme Zoning Commission regular meeting of September 18th to order at 7:30 p.m. Could we begin by saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we have a crowd tonight. Thank you all for coming. Our official roll call, I'm here, Ms. Kalal.
Yes.
Mr. Peck is not here. I believe, Ms. Uhas, it's your turn to sit. Thank you. Ms. Markovitz?
Here.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Ms. Jet Harris?
Here.
Mr. Liska is not here. Ms. Sisko? No. Mr. Mahalan?
Here.
Ms. Lorocco?
Here.
And Ms. Hardy. Good deal. Okay. We'll begin tonight with a public hearing. We have the application of Alex Kloss for East Lyme Public Works for special permit under Section 20.1-F of the East Lyme zoning regulations for property located at 475 Boston Post Road, East Lyme, Assessor Map 18.0, Lot 21. Ms. Kalal, would you like to read Bill's memo?
Yes. Madam Chair, I just want to note that the legal ad ran.
Pardon?
I want to note that the legal ad has run.
Has it? Yes. Okay.
Okay. Memo to East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Mulholland, zoning official. Special permit, Town of East Lyme trail parking at 475 Boston Post Road, East Lyme, September 16th, 2025. The town engineer, Alex Close, has applied on behalf of the town for a special permit to create a small motor vehicle parking area at the property referenced above. The purpose of the project is to provide parking for people to access the walking trails at the southeastern portion of the town's Plants Dam and Goodwin Pond properties. The subject property consists of 117 acres with a 20-acre pond. The property provides for passive recreation. The parking area would allow more access for people who wish to hike the property. The parking area would create 10 parking spaces with 2 being paved for accessible parking. Most of the area would be gravel. The special permit is required under Section 20 General Regulations, specifically Section 20.1.2F, Town Buildings and Uses. The application is subject to Section 25 Special Permits and Section 24 Site Plan. I note that the commercial site plan standards are not applicable in this case. In Section 25.3.1, you will find the standards that require a use to be in harmony with the orderly development of a district. The Commission should carefully evaluate the proposal to ensure it's compatible with the neighborhood and with the use is not objectionable.
Thank you. Would you like to present now?
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. For the record, Alex Close, the Deputy Public Works Director and Acting Town Engineer for the Town of East Lyme. Thank you all for having me tonight at the public hearing. So a little bit of history on this project. There is a dam, Plants Dam, at the southerly end of Goodwin Pond. Along the, it's on the town's property just adjacent to Route 1, the state of Connecticut's right-of-way. And there's a culvert system after that takes the water after the dam under that right-of-way. This dam was built over 100 years ago, and if anyone's seen it driving by, this is kind of in the vicinity of the Rustic Cafe area at the very north end of Plants Dam Road. It's pretty open. You'll see visually the pond as you drive by. You'll see that the surface is in need of repair. And we hired a specialist consulting firm to go out and analyze the condition of the dam, do a site inspection, make recommendations for repair, and the town has applied for a steep grant to both repair the dam and also restore the public's ability to utilize this town space for passive recreation. There were some projects in the past, I believe an Eagle Scout project, possibly some other history that have blazed some trails through there in the past over the number of years that the town has owned the property that runs adjacent to Stone's Ranch. So as part of our dam safety permit, we're going to be going in and clearing an area to set up a construction site and restore the dam here at the southeasterly side. And we said, well, if we're going to go through all that trouble and clear that area, this would be a great opportunity at the same time to also establish a small parking area, as most of the users of the site today just pull off the side of the right-of-way and park in the state road and then have to get out of their vehicle and walk through the property that way, which is not the safest or most effective use of that space. And so up to this point, I'll get into the parking lot specifically, but we've gone in front of wetlands and gotten a wetlands approval for the disturbance area. We're with dam safety at CT Deep right now for the construction laydown as well as the dam safety construction permit. The wetlands have been flagged, and I've also reached out to the district, and I have an encroachment letter from the DOT that has approved the curb cut location and the use of a driveway for a parking lot for passive recreation. So District 2 has already commented and approved the curb cut location. So all of those things have already been cleared. So the last piece of it is the actual site plan approval, which is what we're here for, a special permit to be able to once we're all done restoring the dam, be able to build a parking lot. And so what you have in front of you here is a pretty standard 2-lane driveway with proper site distance based on the posted speed, and again already approved by the district in order to pull off of Boston Post Road. I'm proposing pavement for the driveway, as well as a couple of standard parking stalls and 2 ADA van accessible parking stalls, because that's where a majority of the vehicle traffic is going to be, and it's also very difficult to maintain ADA spaces that aren't paved. The parking lot I'm proposing, because this is a special use, there's no minimum parking standard. What I'm proposing now is 12 total spaces, 10 of them being standard, 2 of them being ADA accessible van. Out of those 10 standard, 2 of them would be paved, and the remaining would be a gravel instead of having to pave, which would allow for less paved maintenance long term, as well as improve the overall site runoff and water quality. So to get into the setbacks of it, if you're out at the site and you're on the roadway, you can see there's a natural berm. The state right-of-way here is actually quite large. It's kind of an open, flat grass area, and then it berms up into the woods. And so we'd maintain the 6-foot landscaping buffer of natural vegetation that already exists with that berm, and grade down there 3-to-1 down into our parking area. And that's kind of how we came up with the placement of the parking lot, as close to the roadway to minimize the amount of paving that's required, and minimize the amount of disturbance into the lot, and maintain as much of the existing vegetation as we can. So what you have in front of you is again those 12 proposed spaces and the grading that is required to slope and clear outside of that area, which is also enough of an area that would get cleared anyway in order to do the rehabilitation that's required for the dam. Which is kind of nice. So we'd go in, clear the area, establish erosion controls, do the construction that's required, and then be able to turn that into a parking lot without having to go and disturb beyond those limits. And that's kind of how we came up with that number of spaces proposed. Meeting the 25-foot buffer of the adjacent property, which is Stone's Ranch. I have spoken to the National Guard as well and the facilities manager there, saying, hey, if we want to have people use this for passive recreation, do you see any problems? They said no. They have a well-defined fence back there. They don't use it for, there's no firearms or anything back there, so they would not anticipate. I think the worst thing we'll get is probably some soldiers that are lost on land navigation and onto our property, more likely than getting people onto theirs. But they were, no issues with using the property for passive recreation either. And specifically to address the overall site development as it pertains to water quality, proposing to shed the gravel and paved area with a low Cape Cod curb to a flat filter level spreader that would be consisting of stone that would take all of the water. It'd be sized enough for the water quality volume for the entire paved surface, even though a small portion would just run back into the state's roadway. Large enough with assuming a 40% void space in the stone. Have this flat filter. It basically would just look like as you're driving into the driveway on the left-hand side or the westerly side, it would just be a stone strip along the edge. The water would go into that, infiltrate into the ground. Any excess water that exceeds, the amount that we'd want to infiltrate, the stone would be level, parallel to the contours. So the water would come up, and as the name implies, a level spreader. It would just let the water sheet flow over the ground out of that stone at least 50 feet from the wetlands. It would traverse down the slope into the pond, maintaining the existing drainage pattern that there is today. That's what the wooded area does today. It would continue to do that. We would be intercepting that paved area prior to it running off into the wetlands. That's how I propose to handle the water quality with a minimum amount of disturbance. Pretty rudimentary but effective, and doesn't require a lot of maintenance or substantial infrastructure. So that's our proposed design that we think is the most effective and meets the applicable setbacks. And I'm absolutely happy to clarify anything or answer any questions that you may have.
I have a couple questions. Will you have lighting in the parking lot, or are people not allowed after a certain time?
So as of right now, this is just town property. It's not a town park. I want to be clear. It is possible that the Board of Selectmen could go and say that we want to make this a town park, and then they could set some sort of regulatory authority. At this time, the plan would just be a dawn to dusk operation, and as it is today, it wouldn't be restricting or not restricting people access to the lot. Just like today, someone just pulls over on the side of the road and uses it. That's where we are now. If it goes to the point where the Parks and Rec Commission is considering adopting this as a town park, they may come up with some other regulations imposed on the property.
Will there be any signage on Boston Post Road that you can turn in there and park? Or
I wasn't proposing any, but certainly if that's something that the commission felt they'd want to see and would approve, we could establish signage. But just as a minimizing the footprint, that wasn't something that we considered at this time, but something we could.
Anybody else?
Yeah, are you paving the road in and 2 spaces?
Yes,
Okay.
the road from Boston Post Road up to the edge of the state's right of way would be required to be paved. I would propose you continue that pavement all the way through to the first couple spaces, and then any additional spaces beyond that are required would just be gravel.
Any consideration on using permeable pavers?
It's definitely a consideration, but it's another maintenance aspect, considering that this is also kind of in the northern end of town, not where we're getting as much regular kind of routine. The only site that we have permeable pavers right now is the hole in the wall parking lot, but between the public works and the Parks and Rec staff and the amount of traffic that's generated over time there's always someone looking at it and inspecting it and maintaining it, where I would worry that if we used permeable pavers here, there'd be a significant operating time expense to go and make sure you're like regularly checking on it, as opposed to regular pavement where we would probably go and inspect the stone, the gravel, every 6 months or so to make sure that that's still functioning as intended. So that would be my hesitation, to use that and treat the water quality with the stone instead of permeable pavers.
So this is the 4 Mile River watershed we're talking about, correct?
Yes, correct.
And so you would like to pave a lot of impermeable paving in the watershed, right next, adjacent to the watershed, 50 feet from the ponds.
When we say a lot relative to the size of this property, it's,
We're not going to quibble over size. All I'm saying is there's a lot of could be impermeable surfaces, but it's too expensive, yet it's going to drain right into the watershed. which,
Right.
from my point of view, is a very important asset in this town, considering that it's Niantic that it feeds.
Sure. That is specifically why we set the parking lot 50 feet away from the wetlands. 50 feet is a standard vegetated buffer minimum requirement to be able to provide water quality treatment. And in addition to that 50-foot buffer, we're also providing the stone filtered level spreader, which will store the first 1.3 inches of rainfall runoff of the paved area in that level spreader and infiltrate that. That level spreader gets maintained if the pollutants or the sediments that settle inside of that stone fill up that void space. That stone would get removed, taken off site, and replaced with new stone to create that volume. So what we're doing is, yes, we're paving, but we're directly mitigating the impacts of the pavement by using a water quality best management practice device to offset the impact of the impermeable pavement.
And what happens if we get more than 1-point-something inches of rain?
Sure. So 1.3 inches is the new water quality minimum standard. It used to be 1 inch. The new 2004 Connecticut DEP water quality management says the 95th percentile they're tracking is at 1.3. So you may have used to hear this in the past. You probably heard the 1 inch water quality. That is now the 1.3 inch water quality volume. That is what we consider your first flush. That is what is going to be the most frequent storm event that is going to carry any pollutants that are on the ground into this treatment device. Beyond that, as it continues to rain beyond that first 1.3 inches, it's considered clean water because that first 1.3 inches has already flushed the pollutants into whatever your treatment device may be. In this case, it's an infiltration level spreader trench and a 50-foot buffer. So as it continues to rain and the pollutants soak into that trench, the water level would eventually come up to the top of the trench and start to run over land, but that water would be clean because it's already flushed all of the pollutants and suspended solids into the treatment device that would get maintained periodically. So it would be essentially clean rainwater, just as if it was a forest instead of a parking lot beyond the 1.3 inches. That's the standard practices.
And how often is the cleaned periodically part?
We would probably inspect it every 6 months. I would anticipate the stones to have to be cleaned out every couple of years. This is such a small parking area and a majority of it's already gravel, and based on the usage, I wouldn't anticipate a lot of pollutants running off into this filter. But we would inspect it every 6 months, as we do most of our best management practices in town. And whenever we see that there's sediment that is building up in between the stones that's there, or if the stones have eroded because we got some really some really significant rain event or something like that, we would refresh that level spreader as necessary.
I have a question. What is the purpose of doing this? What preempted this to happen? You're taking an area that was untouched. Is there more traffic there? Is there more people going there? Is there a reason to be adding all these parking spaces there? I'm just curious as to know, because I looked on the memo, it doesn't say why we're doing it.
So the town is going to invest a lot of money to repair a dam, a historic dam to Goodwin's Pond, for a site that currently isn't really safe for the town's residents to access and use. So we're just kind of holding on to this property for no other reason than to have it, other than some trails that have been blazed in the past. There are users that go up there and hike and they just pull off on the side of the road. So if people are going to be using it anyway and just pulling off onto the side of the road, better to get them safely, off the road into the property, make it more accessible for all of our residents. That's why we're, proposing a couple of accessible parking spaces as well. And kind of foster the idea that the town is, investing in having this piece of property absolutely for water quality because it is in our 4 Mile River watershed, but we can get other uses out of this property since we're putting so much money into the infrastructure there. it just makes sense to make it more available and accessible to the public for passive recreation.
I agree, it would be safe. Cars go so fast on that area, Boston Post Road.
Yeah,
I
we
can't
have-
imagine somebody with a wheelchair or something trying to
Mhm.
maneuver that. I personally think it's a good idea.
We have access those trails as well, and it is
Yeah.
not safe to park
Right.
there.
What other uses do you envision for this property?
Just the use that there is today, passive recreation,
Then
people hiking.
Why do you have to pave it, and why can't you just pave the 2 parking spots for handicapped people? Why do you have to pave the whole thing?
Well, at the minimum for the DOT, we need to pave the entrance, and the right-of-way is pretty significant back. They're not going to allow the stone within, they're not going to allow that to just be within their right-of-way. And so at that point, you're looking at paving the first 30 or so feet, and then you'd be leaving like a stone drive that's susceptible to erosion over time as vehicles drive on it, and then you'd be paving another section beyond that. So again, it's just from a maintenance standpoint, it just doesn't make sense. From a infrastructure investment standpoint, you'd be going out there constantly checking and refreshing the stone that leads into the driveway, because that's where all the vehicle traffic is happening, rather than just the few parking spots. So it's really just a long-term. If there's going to be if the town wants to provide parking there for the residents, it's going to become very difficult to maintain unless we do about half of it being pavement where the majority of the traffic is going to be, and the other half of it not paved, and keeping it permeable for those other remaining spaces when there's up to 12 visitors at a time that are parked there.
Is there going to be maintained in the wintertime with the snow solution, my goodness, plowing, yes. Is that going to be maintained there as well?
At this time, I don't have an answer for that, because ultimately that's going to come down to between the selectmen and the Parks and Rec Commission, if they decide to make it a town park, how they want to maintain their seasonal cycle there. I can.
Okay.
I'm open to any thoughts or anything, but I just don't have
I'm
an
just
answer
asking,
for you.
yeah. And who's going to be doing these checks? And then is there any record keeping of the checks that you're going to be doing about every 6 months? And is there a plan in place when there's too much sediment in between the stones? Who's going to check that? And is there a way of report? Is there a report place that you put them in here that the general public can look at if they choose to?
Well, we do.
Like if it builds up, what's the plan for that if it does build up? Because you're putting some stuff there, you know what I mean, that hasn't had that kind of traffic ever.
Yep.
So was there a plan in place for that?
Yeah, either the Public Works Department, or if it becomes a park, the Parks and Rec Department would go and maintain it. We maintain throughout town several of these best management practices. If you've noticed, all of the tree filters in the Grand Street area, or on Pennsylvania Avenue, or up on Colony Road, all of the catch basins that we have deep sumps, and we vacuum those all out throughout town. So this is not some sort of a new thing in terms of us having to go and maintain some sort of a stormwater treatment device. That is something that we as Public Works and Parks and Rec do significantly, mostly Public Works, because a lot of our treatment devices are to treat runoff from our roadways. We also have to maintain our municipal separate stormwater permit, our MS4 permit, which has to get published annually. Our entire stormwater network, including all of our tree filters, are available online to the public on our GIS. We've also tested all of our outfalls to any impaired water body of the state for bacteria. All of those results are also online, and every year we have to publish an MS4 annual stormwater report. That is a permit that the town needs to maintain just to maintain its roadways. We also have a separate industrial discharge permit for the 12 Roxbury facility and the transfer station. We maintain industrial stormwater discharge permits for those.
So the public can get those records?
Absolutely. Those
And
are,
they can get the results if the sediment,
absolutely.
okay.
That is all made
Thank
available
you.
to the public when we maintain our BMPs. Yep, exactly.
And then I have one more quick question about item number 4 and 5. It talks about minimal front landscaping. What exactly does that entail? Item number 4 and item number 5. Parking and loading.
Oh, those are the setbacks from those are right from the zoning regulations. So the minimum front landscaping setback in the zoning regulations is
Okay.
6 feet, and the minimum landscaping side buffer to an adjacent property is 25 feet. The other setbacks that you see are not applicable because there's no building, so only the parking setbacks apply, not the building setback in this case. It's just a zoning table to, I'm sure you've seen it on
Yep.
other applications, yeah.
So when you dig the stone out, because it's become overflowing with contaminants and dirt and stuff, what happens to it?
We bring it to the transfer station and dispose of it in an environment that gets held, and we also do the groundwater monitoring, depending on what the pollutants we're testing for, every quarter or every 6 months, and we maintain an industrial discharge permit. So we bring it with the other debris that we have to the transfer station, and then the transfer station, as you can imagine, has its own robust we actually made an operations permit for the transfer station and an industrial stormwater discharge permit for the transfer station and groundwater monitoring program for the landfill. So any debris that we bring, just like we would of this stone or any construction debris, has its own robust testing regime.
And you do that at sites all over town that have. this
Cleaning out,
system.
yes, when we clean out our tree filters and things like that, and we refresh the bioengineered soil and mulch and stones.
And you have a list of that too, Alex? Yeah?
What's that?
You have a list of that too?
Yes.
The last time that they were done and, you know,
Yes.
you keep track of all that?
Yes.
Alex, to focus back on the subject, you did get a permit from the Wetlands Commission and they did approve of the drainage designs. Is that
Correct.
Thank you.
Oh, good to know.
Mr. Ross, do you have anything?
No more questions.
Okay. Are we ready to go to the public? No?
Some Boy Scout, quite some time ago, put up a little kiosk, for lack of a better term, and picnic table there. What happens to those?
The picnic table was a hazard and already been removed, I believe, by Parks and Rec, because it was just, when we went out to the site, it was in, we wouldn't want anyone to get hurt at the picnic table. The kiosk is still there. I believe we're proposing to reconstruct a new kiosk at the site because it also has been, stood the test of time at this point with very little to no maintenance. So we're proposing to kind of build a new informational kiosk in the future. I'm actually looking to see if this is kind of future thinking now beyond just the parking area of maybe an Eagle Scout or something like that wants to take up on another project to blaze some new trails or work on a kiosk or something like that. I think that would be a good collaboration that if this gets approved, we could look at moving forward.
So you're not putting back the picnic table in a different form?
We could. Again, that's kind of, I am sort of just following the one step at a time here, where we absolutely had to get dam safety and then wetlands and the DOT approval, because if they weren't going to approve a curb cut, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And now finally zoning to just nail down whether the parking lot itself is adequate, because there's no specific number of spaces called out in the regulations, making sure that we're meeting the setbacks, et cetera, to get the site plan approved. Any kind of operational or recreational use beyond that is that's the next step after this in my mind to figure out what exactly that is going to look like.
I just have like a really quick question. I'm not an engineer or anything, so we're all like asking questions because we're asking questions, but how come you didn't like make it go on the other side of the berm instead of it draining down into the dam, into the water? It's only 50 feet. So was there any way to do it to where it goes the other way, or so it's not draining in that direction?
The
Or does it
entire-
have to be?
The entire site drains there today.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just a big bowl, and on this easterly and southeasterly side, it's higher up, and the wetland is basically where the water is, and the entire west side is flat marsh on the whole west side. So the elevation here is higher. So you've got the pond, and then the pond wet area kind of extends out to the west. And so all of the entire eastern, north to eastern side already drains down from where Stone's Ranch is down into the Goodwin Pond. So we're just maintaining the existing drainage pattern.
At this point, I'd like to go to the public. Is there anyone here that would like to speak for the project? Is there anyone here tonight that wants to speak against the project? Yes, sir, come on up.
Not necessarily speaking against the project, but I have some concerns as a board.
Could you
members.
give your name and address?
My name is Jonathan Trombley. I live on
And
5.
Can someone take down the, we can't see him. Thank you.
I live to the west of the property. I'm the last house in East Lyme, actually. And I know that area pretty well. When it was, as I understand it, it's open space that was bought by the town, purchased by the town. And I am concerned about the pavement and the environmental impact, because I've lived there now for 15 years, and I've seen almost about 60% decrease in wildlife and ecosystems, including frogs, including an immense hawk system, crows, animals of all natures. And when we continually put pavement down and take away the aqueducts, the real filter of life is letting it continue to go down through the natural rock into aquifers that are thousands, 100 years old. So I have a concern of the habitat and the wildlife. And then, of course, the impact of the oils, the metals from the cars. You can park an old car in there that could drop 3-4 pounds of steel, oil, lead. It's I think there's more impact. And again, I'm not totally against it, because I do see the favorable aspects that the assistant brought up, the engineer assistant. And but all in all, I see the amount of use. It's very light because it's a tough terrain and it gets very wet. It's very marshy once you get inside on the left side across the bridge. Everything to the right is pretty much non-accessible because it's the government, it's National Guard. So again, that amount, I mean, I'm not sure why we couldn't leave it natural, but if the board decides to go forward with it, I would say strongly recommend that environmental study be done. Not so much for the filtration system, but for the habitat, because we're losing it. They just put in, you authorized 22 new houses that feed off of that river basin. Now, I believe you're bringing in probably potable water. I don't believe they have anything to do with the wells. I wasn't involved in it, but that's more oils, more dirt, more traffic on a very busy road to begin with. So those are my concerns, and I would really recommend a detailed study before or as part of an application to go forward.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to speak about this project? Alex, would you like to address any of his concerns?
Sure. So, as part of the application to wetlands and the dam safety permit with CT Deep and the impacts of the construction area, there's already been a natural diversity database review. I believe there was an archaeological site review as well that was already done. And again, I absolutely share the concern of adding the impervious area. If we were to add the impervious area with no form of treatment, then that would go against our regulations and good engineering practices. As a licensed professional engineer, I would not recommend that. So instead, we're following the design recommendations that are CT Deep's 2024 Stormwater Quality Management Manual. We're following those design recommendations in order to mitigate the impact of the paved area in order to utilize the site. So it becomes a more fundamental question of whether you want to utilize the site in this way rather than is what's being used to include the infrastructure, because what's being established as the infrastructure is being mitigated by the stormwater quality treatment, which is standard practice to develop any site that we would have anywhere in town, and we'd require of any other developer a site plan application before you. So that is a kind of a fundamental question of the town. Do you want to provide access to the site and let people use it for passive recreation? If you do, and you want to get them on the site safely and effectively, I believe that this is the best way to do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here in front of you working for the town, proposing this. And that's why we have to design these best management practices in place to provide that mitigation. And that was the study that was done, and the design piece of it that was taken into consideration when we did this. That being said, this has now made its way through the Board of Selectmen for the steep application, where the town was awarded $500,000 in order to do this rehabilitation for the site. And one of the reasons that we listed and that we cleared with the board when we authorized for the grant application was that the town, being the Board of Selectmen, did see a future where they wanted to utilize this site for some sort of a passive recreation. And I'm simply the agent to say, okay, well, if that's what we want to do, then this is how we should get there safely and effectively, and according to the the best management guidelines that are proposed. Completely understanding that that piece of it. And yeah, that's what I have to say. Yeah.
Any more questions before we look at closing the hearing? Oh, someone? Oh, yes, do you want to come up?
Sure.
Okay.
Alex, you say that this is, or
Please state your name and address.
my name is Cooper Hurd. I live in Groton. I'm one of Alex's students over at Three Rivers. You say that Plants Dam needs to be rehabilitated to begin with, so this would be the staging area for that project and then transferred into something else?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I had to ask.
Anyone else here tonight? Do I have a motion to close or continue the hearing?
Yeah, move to close the hearing.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 600. Thank you, everyone. The next application actually was going to be the application of Robert Ferrier, agent for Cary Hill Post number 5849 and veteran of foreign wars, for special permit for a private club per section 9.2.1 of the East Lyme zoning regulations for property located at 39 Columbus Avenue, Niantic, Assessor Map 11.4, Lot 78. This has been withdrawn for now. I think our town attorney is still researching the title and some other things, but he'll be back. So we'll move on to our regular meeting. The application of Alex Kloss for the East Lyme Public Works for special permit under 20.1-F of the East Lyme zoning regulations for property located at 475 Boston Post Road, East Lyme, Assessor Map 18.0, Lot 21. Discussion.
As a safety issue, I think it's a good thing, and since we're already going to be out there with heavy equipment doing the dam and doing all that, we might as well do that too, because I do see people use that trail. I've used that trail, and to keep people off the road, I'm in favor of it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to say that I had the initial concerns about the runoff in the water. It sounds like it's gone through all the proper channels, and I also agree with the safety issue. So I would be in favor of it.
Anybody else?
I am not in favor of this. It's almost like give the mouse a cookie. So we fix the dam, and then we get a parking lot out of it. But we have no idea what someone is going to dream up for use. I mean, we could stick a telephone tower in there because the town needs the income. We could do many things which may or may not destroy this 117-acre piece of property. And I look at Darrow's Pond and the infighting over that, and I think that creating all this pavement is not in the town's best interest. Even though I know it would cost more for maintenance if we just left the gravel and 2 handicap spots and the 30 feet that the DOT says we have to do, I would be okay with this without all that paving.
Anybody else?
I would tend to agree with the gentleman that spoke tonight, the resident out there. I think that we're touching a piece of land that has never been touched before, and then we're going to put a paved surface on it, and it's kind of close to the inland wetlands. I know they approved it all and everything else like that. I understand that, but I understand that it's a safety. We need to do that too, but where's it going to go after that? Is the parking lot going to be bigger? Is it going to be made bigger if they turn it into something else?
Mr.
So,
Mulholland, if we went farther with this, that would be something that would have to come before
If
the
it's
committees.
become a park, they need to come before you, Parks and Rec, to get your approval to be a park. If they want to expand that, anything on this property, touch anything, they need to come back to see you. So you have that fail-safe for anything in the future. The only exception would be things like cell towers, which is the purview of the state of Connecticut. They don't just drop those anywhere.
I'm for it. I think the parking lot's very small compared to the size of the land. I think if we want people to be able to walk the paths, I think it's silly to make them park on a busy Boston Post Road.
Well, let's wrap this up. I'll move to accept the application as presented.
Excuse me, approve or deny, please?
Approve.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? I believe it passed 4-2.
Madam Chair, effective next Friday.
Schedule it.
Publish next Thursday, effective on Friday.
Okay, thank you. The next application we just mentioned was withdrawn. Next, we have the approval of the minutes from the September 4th regular meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 600. No old business. No-
Excuse me, Matt? Old business, the moratorium of affordable housing, where do we sit with that?
It is in progress. Our attorney, as of last week, was writing up drafts for our first selectman, and he is in progress with it.
And
Excellent.
I will just add to that, I
Mhm.
met with him this week on another matter at his office with another staffer, and I did ask that question. He volunteered. He said they were diligently working on it and moving it forward and doing the drafts.
But he said that the last time. He was here 2 months ago.
He is diligently working on the drafts, as I'm told directly by Mr. Boothby.
It's further along than last time. We met in his office.
They have to prepare the application to the state, and that's what they're doing. The
Okay.
language, they've got to vet a lot of deeds, they're looking at deeds now, and putting all that together, because when they go to the state, they have to proof all the affordable housing we have in town and what the numbers are, et cetera. So that's been compiled, even though we've done a lot of work to that point already. As we all know, it's been well over a year.
And when the finished language is done, he does have to publish it for a certain period of time.
Right, and this is an application to the state, so they have a lot of requirements as well. So it is moving forward. I asked pointedly.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. No subcommittee reports. New business coming up. We will have coming in a future meeting the application of Mel. Is it Weiss or Weiss?
I heard it both.
Weiss for coastal area management, a CAM review for demolition of existing single-family dwelling and construction of new single-family dwelling for property located at 59 Quarry Dock Road, Niantic Assessor Map 22.1, Lot 12. And Mr. Mulholland, you're scheduling that?
Yes.
Thank you. Any business on the floor that the commission wants to bring up tonight?
Has the chicken regulations been scheduled for hearing?
It has, we're ready to send out referrals shortly. Actually just brought that up in the day today, so we're getting that organized as well as all of the other things that are becoming aware.
Thank you.
Okay. It's time for public delegations. For those of you who don't know, public delegations is a time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission regarding zoning land use items that are not on tonight's agenda. Anyone here? No? Okay, Mr. Mulholland, what news do you have?
You will be busy, as you probably know. We've got some applications coming up. There's a lot of things in the wings. Currently on Flanders Road, the Citgo, if you're not sure what that building is on Flanders Road, next to Citgo, they're building a new convenience store. They're going to eliminate their old kiosk under the canopy. That's going to be eliminated within a landscape. That will be a convenience store. It's all going to be blended. And there'll be a new infrastructure for driving and using the convenience store and exiting. And so that's under construction. The ZDM project in Niantic has begun. If you haven't noticed, they put up a fence with a fabric behind it. Their demo permit application is in. They're waiting for a couple of items that should be coming out shortly, and we're hoping that they begin construction shortly thereafter.
Did everyone notice the trees at Stop and Shop?
Yes.
Yes. Good job, Mr. Mulholland. That took you a long time. You didn't give up.
After 2 years.
I know. Good job.
After 2 years of being persistent, they have put them up, and I, for one, think they look good. In about a year or two, they'll look terrific.
Yeah, they do.
And thanks to them for doing it. I mean, they were obligated to do it. They were so I think, as you know. But yes, those are in too.
I have 3 tree questions.
Okay.
Do you know when the developer Pizzaglia, he had promised to put giant green arborvitaes along Bridebrook? Do you have any? Now fall's a good time to plant. Do you know when he might be doing that?
Got a bug in my office?
No.
He was in with his attorney yesterday. We had a lengthy meeting on 3 or 4 subjects, and that's obviously one I brought up. He has removed a lot of material from the site. He's making progress. We're hoping to capture that this fall. It may be spring. We still got some stuff to move into other things, so we talked quite a bit about that. And he's moving pretty quickly. So it may occur this fall. As we know, time's moving pretty quickly. It's a good planting season, as everybody knows. He's still within his time frame, so he's okay if he doesn't do it. I version did what we're all kind of waiting for that piece of the project, which is typically near the end anyway. And most of the buildings, he's closing in on finishing the buildings, and so he's got to move into the landscape and parking areas and get that done. So he is moving along. It's still a construction site that can be pretty intimidating if you're not used to them. So that's happening.
I have a question on that. If I recall, they were supposed to put in a play area for the kids, because
They are working on that too, and he's talking about adding a small gazebo so the adults can watch the kids in the playground.
yeah, because somebody came up to me and said, "What's going on with that?"
Yeah.
This person
We
has been
talked,
trying to.
we talked about that as well. We talked about dust control. We talked about all those things.
On the new Sitco, did you have architectural design for that?
That was that project happened before we had that ready to go in that section of town. That was approved staff level. It didn't come to the commission because you hadn't yet approved it. That's been in the works for almost 2 years.
Can I throw out my other 2 tree questions? One, I think I mentioned to you before, the Norton building, one of the evergreens died a couple years ago. It'd be nice if they replaced it. And then the trees downtown, several have died. And do you know how we get those replaced?
Alex, And I have had discussions about that. I have had discussions with our first selectman, who indicated he wanted to put those trees back, and, given all the other things that Alex has and that I have, and that's kind of where we've left that subject. We know Dan has indicated he wanted to put the trees back, and so we've got to pay for them. So that's kind of where we're at, and Alex and I have had some general discussions about that. So, it's been discussed.
Okay, thank you. Miss Hardy, do you have anything for us tonight?
Not this evening, thank you.
Bummer. We always look forward to you. Miss Jet Harris, did you by any chance get to go to planning?
Nope, I did not. I apologize. It totally
Okay.
escaped me.
Well,
Well, Mr. Foley.
We'll move on. Miss
Sorry.
Miss Kalal, will you be going in October?
Yes,
Thank
it's marked
you.
in my calendar.
Okay. I just have one thing tonight. I was going to pass out. We have in our, I think our next meeting, the hearing for the short-term rental definition. And after that, I mean, there's three main parts of a short-term rental discussion. I'm proposing that in the 3 meetings after that, we discuss each section. There's too much to discuss at once. I don't know if you read the 90-page report yet, but my thoughts are we could discuss 3 different sections, and then at that time, we can decide, 1, do we do nothing? 2, do we recommend to the Board of Selectmen they pass an ordinance? Or 3, do we do a text amendment ourselves and ask for zoning? And I just kind of made a little chart with some basic questions to get us started
that's
for
great.
next time.
Thank you very much, Ann. That's very helpful.
And that's it, and that's all I have, in case someone wants to.
Here, Bill, you need one? I need another one. There you go, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn tonight?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.